Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another live edition here on the Rock Pile tonight. Tonight, I bring you the Rock Pile on a special Thursday night here. Excited to talk to a former player of ours that my dad and I had the opportunity to coach at Waterville. One of my favorite players. I had the opportunity to coach, so I'm excited to talk to Jon here in just a little bit. So, without further ado. Let me bring him on. Let me just save this off. Let's see. There you are. What's going on?
How's it going?
I'm excited to have you, man. I appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem. So it's been a while since I've talked with you. I don't think the last time I think I chatted with you, man. I think we were playing against you.
Yeah, it's been some years now. Yeah.
So I got to start with you at Waterville, right? I got to have a little fun with you here before we get into some of the tough questions. Who was tougher on you, my father or me?
From what I remember, probably you. I think at that point your dad was pretty chill.
Yeah, I think my dad mellowed out.
Yeah, I think he was pretty chill at that point. He'd get a little upset once in a while, but he was pretty chill.
I'll tell you, young Pat Pastelacqua, you probably remember Pat.
Yeah, I remember his dad was really hard. That guy was always yelling.
Oh yeah, he was a lunatic. He was even crazier back in the day when he was with my dad in the early '80s and late '80s.
Yeah.
But Pat and I always talk, and one of the things we said was it was my first year as the head coach at Sequoia, which I think might have been your junior year.
Yeah. Was that the first year after you left Waterville? Or the second?
Yeah. I think it was my first year.
It would have been my junior year, yeah.
And I'll tell you, that was probably the toughest game for Pat and I and my dad and everybody to coach him, because I say this in all honesty, like your guys' group was one of the best groups in probably 15 years that we had the opportunity to coach. But I still say this, your junior year and then your senior year, that team we would have won a Section 3 title with that team.
Yeah, definitely looking back, I wish we could have kept the whole thing together going into that next junior year with that crew we had.
That was a good group.
Yeah. Definitely the junior year was we had everyone back pretty much, yeah.
So now you get out of high school. I know you went on to play at St. John Fisher, but you played linebacker in college, right?
Yeah. So I went out to college, and obviously at Waterville I played, pretty much everywhere as quarterback, linebacker, safety, kicker, whatever, the whole nine. But so I went out to college, kind of didn't know what I was going to play. I knew I wasn't, a decent high school quarterback, but realistically I just got thrown in the quarterback role, adjusted to it pretty well. But I was never like really probably going to be a high level college quarterback. So I got there. They pretty much made a decision for me. They're like, all right, you're going to play safety. I was like, okay, cool. Went in, played safety my freshman year. Did all right, played pretty well in JV. I got a little bigger my sophomore year, so they bumped me down to backer. And then I kind of grew into that role, played a lot better. Then ended up playing pretty much middle backer most of my career there. Played senior year, moved down, played a little bit outside backer / like DN rush, because I got up to like 220 in college. But yeah, so my career is pretty much linebacker. Yeah, it was super fun. Really enjoyed football. Missed the football days, but yeah.
So what was the toughest transition for you going from high school to college?
Probably the toughest transition was just for me, especially coming from like a school like Waterville, we had such a small group. We only had like 25 to maybe 30 kids at most, like close knit. And, you go out to Fisher, like a college like that, like there's 75 freshmen come in on top of the already 50 guys that are there. So you just get thrown into this huge crowd where you're just another guy in the mix to start off with. You got to kind of work your way to the top. But That was the biggest thing, just thrown onto this team with 130 guys right off the bat. Especially when you come in as a freshman, none of the coaches really know. I mean, they know you from the recruiting process, but when you first come in, you're kind of just you're just a nobody to them. So that's a little bit different than coming from a school like Waterville, where like if you're one of the good athletes, you're just kind of like, there's so few kids, like everyone knows you, this and that.
Mm-hmm.
When you go out to there, it's like you're just kind of thrown in the pile, and they don't really care about you unless you can prove yourself, move yourself to the top. So that was probably the biggest adjustment. But in the end, that's a good thing because it makes you really work hard. So that was probably the biggest adjustment. But it was fun.
So you got to give me a little bit of an overview in the audience tonight. How did you get hooked up doing this MMA stuff?
Yeah, so it was my junior year, the off season. So we were going through off season lifts and everything. And I knew, like, for myself, I'm the type of person where I knew, because I was getting towards the end of my playing career, I had my senior year left. I knew I was the type of person where I needed something to keep me, something to compete in. Like, once I got done with college, I just couldn't be like that type of guy that goes works at 9 to 5, maybe hits the gym a couple times a week. I couldn't do that. I just knew, like, I would go crazy, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself doing that. So I kind of knew I needed to find something I could compete in outside of football when I was done, because I knew at that point, like, I was a decent D3 player, but I wasn't going to the NFL. Like, that wasn't happening. So I didn't really know at the time, but I had a couple of guys I played football with. They were like, hey, we know this guy at this gym in the city. He does this, jiu-jitsu stuff. You want to go, like, check it out one day or something? I was like, that sounds pretty cool. Let's do it. So it was the off season. We go down there, check out a class. We don't know what's going on. We don't know anything. But jump in there, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we all go a couple times. The other guys kind of fell off. They're like, this is cool, but they weren't really interested in sticking with it. So my whole off season, I stuck with it. I was training 3 or 4 times a week, going down to the gym. So it was cool. So I went back home for the summer, and I started training at a gym back home too, because I really liked it. I wanted to train during the summer. I was still getting all my football lifts and stuff, because I was like, I've already, like, at that time in, like, the off season, the summer, like, I really got hooked on it. I was like, I want to fight. Like, at that point, I was more interested in that than football. Like, I got hooked that quick. I was like, all right, I've already played 3 years, spent so much time. I got to play my senior year. I'm not going to, like, not play my senior year. So I played my senior year, tried to, like, train, like, once a week or something on an off day. So as soon as football was done my senior year, I started training every day. I remember I jumped in, right after football season, I did, like, grappling tournament. Did pretty good, won it. Kept training. And then, like, beginning of my second semester, senior year, I remember the guy who owns the gym. So that same gym I went to is the same gym I'm at today. The guy who owns it was like, hey, you interested in, like, doing a fight or something? Like, you want to try it out? And I was like, sure, fuck it. So he was like, he got me a fight. I'm still in college at the time. Kind of, like, told my parents. And, I mean, kind of, like, skeptical, but so I take the fight. No expectations. I'm just doing this. Like, at this point, this is just, like, kind of like something that's cool to me. It's not like at this point I have any kind of aspirations to fight pro or anything. Go in there, win the fight. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So do another fight before I graduate, win that fight. So I graduate college, whatever. I get a job. And actually, in the process of this, I got I took because I went to college for criminal justice and I want to be a cop, whatever. So I had taken the state trooper exam when I was in college. So I graduated college, kind of got a job, like, putting pools in right after because I needed a job. Still did a couple more fights. So I remember the state troopers called me up, and they're like, all right, you scored well. You can start the hiring process. I was like, okay. So I go do the first step of the hiring process. I get through it. Go again, get through the second wave. And at that point, I think I was like 4-0, 5-0 as an amateur. So I was getting to the point where I really liked this, kind of taking it serious. Like, maybe I could fight pro. So I remember it was like after college, I graduated the next, like, September. I was kind of getting to the point in the hiring process where I wasn't hired yet. So I'm not 100% sure if I would have got hired, but I was kind of that point where, like, if I got hired, I knew that, first of all, I was going to have to move somewhere else. Because after I graduated, I decided to stay in Rochester to train at the gym. And I knew that if I had to move, I would have to take 6 months just to be in the academy. I couldn't train. I knew like if I took the job, like I was never gonna be able to like seriously fight pro. Maybe someday I'd have time, but I was like, I think at the time I was 5-0, so I was like, you know what, fuck it. I dropped out of the hiring process. Told my parents, I was like, you know what, I don't think I could live with myself if I don't at least try this out. I'm young, 20, I think it's 22 at the time. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. And I just, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Whatever. I'm so young, I can go reapply. So whatever, they supported me. So then I just, I got like a job in a school, making, not great money, but enough to get by. Because I still am fighting amateur at the time. I'm not getting paid to do this. Still fighting amateur. Go on to fight amateur for another year or so. Still working. So then I finally, had a pretty good amateur career. So finally, decided to go pro. I think once I got 3 or 4, I got like, 4 fights into my pro career, I finally decided to quit the job and just go full time with it. So that's basically the story of how that whole thing started.
I had a friend of mine who was a former teammate of mine at Fordham. His name is Eddie Gordon. His fight name was Eddie the Truck Gordon.
Oh, I think he was on the Ultimate Fighter, maybe.
He was. Yep, he won it.
I've seen. Yeah. I've seen his fights before.
And he's not doing it anymore. I think he's actually training.
He's probably older now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm 44. He's around my age, maybe a couple of years younger than I am. But when I interviewed him a couple of years ago, he said it's so hard to get to that level.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just he caught a break.
Yeah.
When I say it's like anything, right? You got to get your break when you get your opportunity, take advantage of it. But he says it's so hard to get there to that level.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm right on that like brink of, hopefully getting my opportunity to get that opportunity in the UFC. So, so I understand. Yeah, it's really hard. And like, so now looking back, like, I'm glad I made that decision just to go all in on it because, like I said, I'm not quite there yet. But if I didn't dedicate, 100% to my life, I wouldn't even be in this position to this day.
Dude, I got to tell you, like I've watched a lot of these fights. I've seen some of your clips and stuff, but even growing up, like I used to watch it, and I would say you have to be an absolute lunatic to stand in that freaking ring and get your brains kicked in. And then I'm watching your fights. I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're an animal in the ring.
Yeah. A lot of people say that, like, oh, it's crazy. But it's just something like I just love to do it. I mean, like, obviously there's downsides. Getting beat up on certain days or getting kicked in the head, shit like that. It's not fun, I would say. But it's just I love doing it. I love the training. I love getting in there and fighting. It's just something that not many people are built for it. But I guess it's just something that in me that really took to it.
I mean, I always say it's like any sport. Like in football, you had the Friday night lights, like walking out in the lights, the fans, like everybody cheering. Like for you, like what is it? Like what gives you the thrill? Is it like walking out to the ring? Like once you step in that ring and like a different John shows up, like what gives you that burst?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always just loved, just competing in general, whether it was football, basketball, whatever it was. I just love competing. I love competing in front of a crowd. I just love the thrill, the adrenaline you get out of it. And I mean, fighting is to the next level. Like I tell people, like if you've never get in the cage and fight, like it's a feeling and it's experience you can't like explain. You'll never get in your life. So for me, it's just I embrace it. Like people are like, oh, aren't you nervous? Aren't you this? Aren't you that? Like, yeah, I'm definitely. There's nerves. Definitely, there's you're going in a cage to fight a trained fighter that wants to kill you in front of thousands of people in your family. So yeah, there's nerves. But as I've gone in my career, you learn to control that and kind of not let it affect you in a negative light. But yeah, I just embrace it because every time, like I tell people, every time I go in there and I get in the cage and right before I fight, I just take it all in. I look around, just take it on because you never know that every fight could be your last fight. Every time I get in there, this could be the last time I get in here. You never know. So I just embrace it. I just love it, and you don't know how many times you're gonna get to do it. So as much as there are nerves and like anxiousness and like stuff like that, at the same time, it's like you never feel more alive than when you get in that cage to fight. So I just love it and I just embrace all of it. And like I said, I don't know how many times I'm gonna get to do it. Hopefully, a lot of times at a high level. And but yeah, I just embrace it and I just love it. So I don't know, I just get a big kick out of it. So I guess that's what it is.
Well, I got to say, like, I can do a lot of like play by play and break down sports, but like I have no idea the
Yeah,
different strategies. So I watched a lot of the interviews that you've been on with some MMA shows, and one thing they always talk about with you is you like to grapple, right? You like to get on
yeah,
the mat, and
that's my strategy. Yeah.
a lot of guys say, your striking's not as strong as the grappling, but you can win. Like, so I go back to some of the older guys, right? The Royce Gracies, like those guys
Yeah,
that if they got you on the mat, it was over.
yeah.
So how do you work on that? Like, do you work more on your striking right now because that's an area where you got to improve upon? Like, what's the big difference for you?
Yeah, so I mean, grappling is just always from the start. It was I better grappler. It's first central to me. I've always just been a really good grappler. Like outside of just fighting, like I'll go compete in just grappling tournaments and I'll do really well at high level. So I've just always took to that pretty well. Um, but as far as like I train everything. Like I tell people, like I can strike. Like in my most recent fight, I was fighting a kid that was supposed to be a super high level striker, and I actually think overall I outstruck him on the feet. We were on the feet for a long period of time, so like I showed I can strike. I might be a better grappler. That's always going to be my strength, but I'm confident that I can strike, and if I have to, I can. So yeah, that's definitely my strength. And like at the end of the day, if taking someone down and getting on top of him is always going to be my go-to in a fight, but I'm confident I can also strike, and I mean I work that just as hard. So try to be as well-rounded as you can, and get better at everything every day.
Now, how tough is it? Because you're in the welterweight. Like, how tough
Yeah.
is it like to keep weight and all that for you when you're not fighting?
Yeah. So cutting weight is actually in dieting is by far the hardest part of the sport, by far. Um, that's the toughest part. Like I love training. I love getting in the fight in there to fight. If I didn't have to cut weight, I would fight every month. I love to do it. I love to train. In between fights, like if I don't have a fight schedule, I'm still in the gym 2 to 3 times every day. Between training people, running classes, doing my own training, so I love that part of it. And I love fighting. The hardest part is the cutting weight, making weight. So like when I don't have like right now I don't have fight schedules, I can be a little more lenient, eat what I want, have some fun, but like as soon as I get a fight scheduled, I work with a dietitian. um so once I get a fight scheduled, ideally you like to have 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. But as soon as I get a fight scheduled, we get on the diet and I start toning that in really tight. Especially as soon as I get close to fights, I got to tighten that diet up real tight because I caught like I'm not gonna say I'm like massive at 170, but I'm like a good size 170 fighter. So I do cut a decent amount of weight. So I do got to be very strict on the diet, and I really like to eat. So that part really sucks. The weight that really sucks too. So cutting weight. If you talk to most fighters, they'll probably tell you the same thing. Cutting weight is the worst part of the sport. It's awful.
So how far out ahead, like when you schedule like your next fight, like is there a certain timetable? Like is it 3 months out and then you need 90 days to prepare for a fight? Like what's the timetable for that preparation?
So it's just when an opportunity pops up, like generally, ideally, if I could get 8 weeks, that's an ideal amount of time to get ready for a fight. That's for me. I don't really like more is kind of like not unnecessary, but like 8 weeks is like a perfect number usually for a lot of guys. Will tell you about the same. But sometimes opportunities will pop up on short notice that you got to take, so you got to be ready at all times. So that's like the weight thing comes in. I try not to get too heavy between fights because like especially right now where I'm sitting at, where the UFC, could potentially call me any day. If they called me and they're like, "All right, you got to go in 2 weeks," that means I got to make weight in 2 weeks. So I'm not trying to get too heavy right now. Trying to keep that weight, trying to stay disciplined. Not live life too good right now, but yeah, yeah, the dieting's hard, and yeah, 8 weeks is good because that generally gives me a good window of time to slowly get my weight down into a spot where I want to make that that weight cut that week of. But it's never you never know. It's never always that long. But yeah, 8 weeks is ideal for the weight cut window.
Do you have anybody, I'm sure you do, whether it's within the in the field or maybe it's family, friends, coaches or whoever, but do you have some folks that you can lean on, for advice? I know you're waiting for the call up, which would be a huge, huge dream for you, I'm sure. But are there some people that you can lean on that have helped you with kind of guide you through all this?
Yeah, I mean, like, I got my coaches in the gym, my manager, guys like that. Yeah, help you through it. But I don't know. I just try to stay focused on the goal, and I just keep grinding. And I'm at the point where I know if I just keep grinding and doing the right things, I'm going to get that opportunity, hopefully sooner than later. But I try not to get, discouraged or thrown off by, not getting the opportunity yet. I just, keep working and, keep putting the work in, and it'll pay off here, hopefully sooner than later, but it will.
The first loss of your career. What'd you learn from that first loss?
Well, I'm not invincible. So yeah, my first loss, my amateur loss, I was, I think 5-0 as an amateur to that point. And I think they're all pretty much easy wins, finishes and stuff. And, I was kind of feeling myself as an amateur. And, where I went in, I was find a really, really good guy. He was a really good amateur too. Took it right in the beginning of the fight, took him down. I was winning the whole round. And then I almost choked him a few times in the first round. And then he ended up getting up, and then with 1 second left in the first round, he caught me with a head kick.
Oh.
So it was like a flash knockout. So he didn't put me down face down on the mat. Hit me with a head kick, kind of flash knocked me out. I fell down on the ground. Boom. Amateurs, they stop it really quick, so ref stopped it. But yeah, it's a humbling experience, losing a fight. But I think it was good for me to get that experience as an amateur. It sucked at first, but you kind of pick yourself up and realize it's not the end of the world, and you just move on with it. I've taken 2 losses in my pro career too, so it's part of the game. Only there's only one guy to this point who's ever retired undefeated ever in the history of UFC. So pretty much everyone takes losses at some point. So it's just about how you rebound from it, I guess.
I can't imagine my wife or my mother or family members coming to any of my fights because, first of all, my mom didn't like to watch me play football. She'd always cover her eyes.
Yeah.
But what's your family say when you're in that ring? They got to be scared. You don't get hurt. You don't want to see you on the ground bleeding or anything. What do they say?
Oh, they definitely get nervous. I mean, I think my mom the most at first. I mean, I think she still definitely gets nervous and freak her out if I, was all bloody and stuff. But I think she's kind of gotten better with it. I'm 20 fights into my career, so I think she's kind of, getting a little more used to it. I think she definitely gets nervous, but I think they get nervous. But what I tell people, I think they get more nervous for the fights than I do a lot of times. Because I tell people, when I go and watch or I corner guys I train with, I'm friends with, I get more nervous for that than when I fight. So, if I go and I'm in the corner for some of the guys I train with, I get more nervous for that than when I fight because I can't control what's happening. So I get more nervous for that. So I feel like, they probably the same thing. They can't control what's happening and they don't know what's happening. And so I'm sure there's a lot of nerves that I think they've gotten, a little bit better with it over the years and the more fights as it goes. And, the couple times I have lost, I mean, I'm sure it's hard for them. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you can move forward.
So your last fight, you just fought here, the end of May?
Less than 2 weeks ago.
And I saw the video at the end where you called out some folks about getting called up to the UFC, right? Dana White and all that. What's the process now? You just have to wait?
Yeah, so that's the thing with this. There's no set you do this, you get in. It's kind of you just fights. You got to get their eye somehow, and then you get the call, you get an opportunity. So that is the hard part, where it's not if you go win this fight, you're going to get your opportunity in the UFC. That's not how it works. It's you got to go in, you got to win fights, and you got to catch their eye somehow, and you kind of just keep grinding, you keep winning fights, and you just kind of sit and wait for that opportunity. So you got to try to make some noise, get their eye, call them out. I don't know. Do whatever you got to do. Just to get your foot in the door. Just get that opportunity. It's tough to get there. There's a lot of guys in my same spot as me trying to get the opportunity. So, like I said, I'm on a good streak this year. I already have three fights this year already, 3 finishes, 9-2 now. So yeah, hopefully I'm getting close, and I'm hopefully that opportunity comes here pretty soon.
So when do you anticipate maybe fighting again? A couple months or late summer?
Yeah, as of right now, I don't have any specific plans. Coming into this year, the start of the year, I was like, all right, I set a goal. I was like, I'm going to fight 3 times before the first half of the year. Which 3 times in I ended up doing 3 times in 5 months. That's a lot of fights for that short period. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna, I was coming off a setback back in last September. Had a setback. So coming in this year, I was like, all right, I'm getting 3 wins. By June. I'm going to go in there, 3 dominant performances. I put myself back on track, put myself right in the opportunity to get the opportunity. So I set that goal. I went out there and did it. So now I'm sitting in a spot where I could be right on the cusp of getting the opportunity. Right now I'm just gonna, since pretty much the first fight this year I took it right around Christmas time. So right around since Christmas last year up until right after this fight, I've pretty much been in training camps to fight. Because after every fight, I already knew the next fight was pretty much lined up. So this whole year had been pretty much all it's been is just training, dieting, and just no life. So I'm taking a little time I'm still in the gym, twice a day, every day, running my classes and stuff, but taking a little time just to, enjoy the summer for a little bit, spend time with some friends and family with a little bit of extra time I have without having to be on a super strict diet and have no life. So doing that for probably the month of June. In the meantime, if I got called up by the UFC, great. I'm ready to go. Jump right back into training camp. But if not, I'm not gonna sit around too long. If the opportunity for the UFC opportunity to come up, I'm sure I'll be antsy to get back in there by August or September. So we'll see what happens. Just kind of enjoying life a little bit and seeing what opportunities pop up for a little bit.
I know you mentioned you had a setback early, and injuries happen, right, in sports, some depending on
Yeah.
the severity of the injury. But, after a fight for you, like, how sore are you the next day?
Oh, I mean, that all just depends how the fight goes. So I've been lucky this year. All my fights, so the first fight I had back in January, that was pretty one-sided. That was a first-round finish. The only thing that was sore was actually my elbow from elbowing him in the face. So that didn't hold me back. So I'll take that every time. The last 2 fights, I didn't have any injuries or I wasn't busted up. Just general soreness. If you fight 3 rounds, both fights went to the 3rd round. So over the course of 3 rounds in a fight, you're going to be a little bit sore. But that's like a week of soreness and right back into it. Obviously, if you go into a fight and you get really busted up, you could be a month recovering. It just depends on the severity. So it's just it depends. But I've been lucky these fights this year. I didn't really take any significant damage. It was just general soreness, so I was able to jump right back into training camp. So yeah, like I said, it just depends on how rough the fight was.
So, crazy question. Would you rather have, I mean, a win's a win, but
Yeah.
would you rather have somebody tap out against you or actually have you knock somebody out? Like, what's the better as a fighter? Do you want to knock somebody out, or is it better to get tapped out?
I mean, I guess that just depends. I mean, obviously a win's a win, so you'll take it either way. But I've submitted a lot of guys. I've yet to actually just knock out someone. So I guess for me, I would like to do that because that'd be cool. Um, just to straight KO someone that would be pretty cool. So I guess for me, probably that because I have a lot of submissions, so that'd be cool to get.
I want to know how the after parties are at these things. Do they have these big after parties after fights?
Yeah. So this the promotion I was fighting for is a pretty good time. They do their fights, and as soon as after the fights, there was a bar right literally within a 5-minute walk of the venue. So we'd walk down there. After party, the bar would be packed with all the fighters and people with the teams and stuff. And so yeah, it'd be a good time. And generally after the fights, we'll go back to the hotel and have a good time. Generally, I don't end up sleeping the night after fights. Partly due to we're just up, partying, and partly to do with I'm so wound up that I'm not going to sleep anyways. Generally crash the next night, but yeah, it's always a good time. Especially when you win. Like I said, like this sport really is like the highest low to the lows. Like winning a fight is the best feeling in the world. You feel on top of the world. Like, your friends and family are there. You just feel like, the best feeling. You're the man. But it goes the other way. You lose a fight, you feel pretty low. You feel like, fuck, this really sucks. I just lost for all my friends and family, and you're not in the mood to go party. So yeah, it's the highs and lowest to lows. That thing's true for this sport. So fights you do lose, yeah, it's generally not a good time after.
Have you had the opportunity to meet some, any big names in the MMA?
I don't know about any super big names. I've trained with and met quite a few UFC fighters. Not like any like Conor McGregor's or anyone like that. But I've met some guys in the UFC, this and that, trained with them. Nothing super high level. It was actually cool. The last fight I had, you'll appreciate this. So the event was sponsored by Ty Law, Ty Law,
Oh yeah, Michigan man.
Yeah, the Patriots cornerback, Hall of Famer.
Yep.
He started a vodka line. It was like I forgot what the name of the vodka was, but he sponsored the event, so he was at the event. He was there, so he went to the after party too because he was sponsored vodka, handing shots out. So I remember I came in, I just won the title, so I came in with the belt to the after party. So I came in, I was with my girl and my family. I come in, and he's like, "Oh, champ, come over here." So Tyler called me over. He's like, "Yo, I'm taking a shot with the champ." I took a shot. I talked to him like 15 minutes. He was a super cool dude. So that was pretty cool. That was the last fight, the fight back in March. So that was cool talking with him and stuff. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, he's a Michigan guy.
Yeah, he was college. Cool, dude.
Yeah, he would have been fun to talk to because I'm a diehard Michigan guy, so he would have been great. But
yeah, that was fun. I mean, he was I think he was feeling pretty good by that point because he was handing out shots and taking shots with everyone. I think the whole night, so I think he was feeling pretty good. But yeah, he was a cool dude. That was fun.
So how often do you get a chance to come home? So are you out in Rochester? Is that where you're living?
Yeah, so I live out in Rochester. Yeah, I still generally will come home at least once a month to see because it's only a 2-hour drive.
Yep.
But I'll come home, probably at least once a month, just for a day or two, just see family and stuff. But yeah, I come home relatively often, just to see everyone. Like I said, it's only a 2-hour drive, but the majority of the time I'm in Rochester training because this is my gym, my gym I do my workouts at and stuff, and I run class at the gym. So I'm here most of the time, but yeah, I come home pretty often.
So are there some names as far as fighting? Are there any names that you have lined up that you'd want to fight? Anybody that stands out?
Not, at this point, not really. I mean, I just want to get my opportunity. Anyone that the UFC give me opportunity. There's one guy that beat me on the regional scene in a split decision that was, like a questionable decision. He's in the UFC now, so I'd love to get that one back. But besides that, I just want my opportunity.
So if you get the opportunity, I know it's probably hard to actually stay at that level, right? I would imagine that you got to win fights.
It's hard. They say it's hard to get in, but it's even harder to stay there.
Yeah, I can only imagine once you're actually there. What would it be like for you? You get the call, your first fight, walking into that ring. I mean, I would just be looking in awe, looking around, saying, "Wow, I actually made it."
Yeah, so I mean, like you don't want to get caught up in that because it's same. Like in one part of it's like, yeah, it's super cool you got to the UFC, but I don't want to be that guy that got there, lost 2 or 3 fights, then you're gone.
Yep.
Like, yeah, that's cool, but I didn't accomplish anything because I mean, I look at it as like once I get there, now the real work, the real journey's starting. And once I get there, I want to stay there. I want to win fights, and I want to work my way to the top there. I don't want to just be a guy that gets there, loses a couple fights, get kicks out, and then I just have a cool story for the rest of my life. Like, oh, I was in the UFC, but I didn't really accomplish anything and didn't really amount to much. So when I get there, I want to make it count. So I'm glad that maybe I didn't get the opportunity a little bit earlier in my career when I wasn't quite ready. But now I feel like I'm 12 fights into my pro career, and I'm at a point now where I feel like I'm ready to be there. and I'm gonna be ready to stay there too. So yeah, so I want to stay there. I want to accomplish things there. I don't want to just get there and just just be happy with just getting there.
Are there some fighters that that may resemble your fighting style? Is there somebody that you've always kind of said, yeah, I kind of fight a little bit like that guy? I mean, I know you want to be yourself.
Yeah. Um. I mean, not really. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are really good grapplers. Um. In the UFC. So anyone who's a really good grappler, I mean, would resemble my style, but no one I really like looked up to, like, oh, this is the guy I want to, like, style my stuff off or like kind of like follow his blueprint. Not really. You know, I just try to be the best me and just go in there, do what I'm good at, and be confident in what I can do.
So I got a couple last questions for you. How'd you get the nickname the Warhawk?
So back when I was about to make my pro debut. And I didn't have a nickname, so my manager was like, you need a nickname. I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not gonna give myself a nickname, so you figure it out. He's like, all right. So he's just thinking of stuff, and he found out that my middle name is Hawk, so that's where that came from.
I like that. I mean, the nickname fits you perfect. Like when
Yeah.
they do your
He
introduction,
was like,
it's perfect.
he's like, your middle name's Hawk. You never told me that. I was like, I mean, why would I think to tell you that? So then he came up with that, and I was like, all right, we'll try it out, see how it goes, and I stuck with it, and it kind of stuck, and we went from there.
You got a lot of people that ask you for tickets?
Not like really free tickets, because I'm like, look, I ain't getting these for free, and I ain't getting paid enough to give them to you for free. So I got tickets to sell, but yeah, maybe when I get to UFC, I'll have a lot of people hit me up. But at this point, yeah, they kind of buy them, and they know I don't got that kind of money yet.
Well, listen, your next fight, hopefully you fight, sometime, down the road here. But I definitely would love a chance to come watch you fight.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You should.
So I'll have to see, when you fight and where you're fighting at. But
Yeah.
how do we get a shirt? Can I buy a shirt?
Yeah, I can shoot the link.
All right, yeah, I'll get on there. What do you sell? Like shirts, hats, all that?
Yeah. So there's like bunch. So I don't. It's actually my manager like controls that, because like I didn't want the headache of dealing with it. So he set up the site, and like I just send the link to people, and they buy through there. So it's not like I don't have to handle it, because I don't have the patience.
Yeah, shoot me the link. I'll buy a shirt.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, man, I'm proud of you. I follow you. You were one of my favorites to coach, one of the best athletes I had the opportunity to coach. And
Appreciate that.
I know my dad and I and everybody's proud of you this way. So keep grinding. I know you'll get there.
Oh, we'll get there sooner or later.
And the only other thing I was going to ask, you get a chance to talk to any of the old Waterville guys? You still keep in touch with a lot of them?
Yeah, some of them, yeah. A lot of the guys I played football with, I'll catch them when I'm home once in a while, here and there, catch up with them. But yeah, definitely, I try to stay in touch the best I can. Everyone's busy. A lot of guys moved out of town and stuff. But yeah, try to stay in touch the best I can.
Well, that's good, man. Always keep in touch with the local guys.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate it. Again, proud of you.
Yeah,
and shoot me that link. I'll buy a shirt from you.
For sure, I will. Thank you.
I'll keep up the grind.
All right. Oh, I will. Don't you worry.
All right, man. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
All right, buddy. Yeah, he was awesome. He was a really good athlete. When we were at Waterville, I think he was actually a running back that we had converted to play quarterback, and coachable kid. Big competitor, didn't like to lose. None of us do, but he was a big competitor, and he'll get there. I know he's going to get there. He's determined. He's a great athlete, and he'll keep fighting until he gets to the UFC. Hopefully he gets a call, and he's ready. I know he'll be ready to fight when he's called upon. So this Sunday, the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch, I'll have a special guest on. One of my favorite guests of all time comes back around this time of the year. The voice of Coney Island, George Shea, will be on with me Sunday morning at 9 o'clock on the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch. I think we'll have Pags on. I don't know if we'll have Coach Medicis. I think the stat man will join us, but we'll definitely be on live at 9 o'clock across all the social media platforms. So I want to thank Jon Piersma for coming on tonight with me. And as I say all the time on the Rock Pile is where dreams become reality.